All right, from a throwing side of things, I'm using Aroldis Chapman. I understand that most of us are not going to be able to move in the way that Aroldis Chapman does. So I use him just because the movements are so much more obvious. So I'm just going to jump right in. Okay, so big thing in general, I would say most of you need to focus on copying this move right here. How do you get into your leg kick and how do you get out of your leg kick? Just that. Okay, so by the time your arm swings down, before it starts coming up, okay, can you copy these movements? Okay, and I don't think these videos are in similar frame speed, so I can't sync them up, but I can give you an idea. Okay, so you want to be copying what you're seeing right here. Okay, so we see him moving inside his leg as he lifts. Okay, so as he lifts his right leg, we're seeing him shift his weight forward. We talked a lot about momentum today. We talked a lot about accelerating. Okay, if we want to create momentum down the mound without moving our feet, okay, which we cannot do, which position players can do, we absolutely need to start shifting our weight forward by the time we peak our leg kick. Okay, so I know a lot of coaches will teach balance point. I'm much more worried about this from a balance position. Okay, so if we look at the video on the left, we're seeing that he's moving forward early, and if we pay attention to the video on the right, we're seeing him move down this line very, very well. And our camera angle isn't perfect for this, but we see quite obviously how much he stays over his back foot as he's moving down the mound. Once he goes to turn, we see a couple different things, but generally speaking, that's really what we're looking for when it comes to balance. Staying over your back foot, not in this example, but in this example. So seeing our weight stay in the center of our foot as we move forward. Okay? So I'm not a big balance point guy for that reason, because you don't see the best throwers doing it. You see the best throwers moving inside their back foot as they move. Okay? You're going to notice something else. You're going to notice that he is turned away. Now, position players aren't going to necessarily do this as much for several reasons, so I'm not going to get into that as much. Okay, but this has to do with the fact that we're not moving our feet and that we simply have to stride down the mound and create tons of speed and put ourselves in strong positions as we move down the mound. And that's a challenging thing to do as a pitcher. So we see as he peaks his leg kick, you can see how much he's turned away. So I can see his pockets, I can see his numbers, I can see his back, and I'm going to see these things as he moves down the mound. So I take him down to the bottom of his arm swing, and I still see both of those positions. Those are super crucial. These are things that I see good throwers doing that I don't see younger players doing, and I also see younger players not being taught this. So, when I've heard coaches say we don't want to coil too much when we lift. Well, that's if we don't go anywhere. So if you remember Roy Halladay, if there's parents listening, Roy Halladay had a lot of inconsistencies early in his career because he was doing all of this twisting away, this counter rotation, and he wasn't going anywhere. So the best throwers are turning away as they move forward. Okay? So, as you lift, are you starting your move forward, and are you getting some sort of turn away? I'll give kids point of reference as like this. I'll tell them their hips and shoulders. If I'm right-handed, my hips and shoulders should be facing back toward the shortstop as I move. If I'm left-handed like Chapman, my hips and shoulders are facing back toward the second baseman as I move. Okay? Once rotation happens, it's going to start right here. That front leg crosses that front hip. Okay? So this is what it looks like. Once his front knee, crosses that front hip, we're going to start seeing him open his front leg and drive his back leg through. Okay, so a lot of you are doing things out of sync because this stuff doesn't happen. Because when you lift, you're not moving forward. When your leg goes down, you're not getting your body turned away. Okay, so focus on these movements. Copy what you're seeing right here. Don't worry about anything after that until you can look more similar than different in this move. but I am going to describe what happens afterward for your information. Okay? So please, focus on how you lift, how you get out of it as the beginning of what you're trying to do. Okay? Now, I do want you to understand this. Everything happens once our front foot hits the ground. So I can't throw the baseball without front foot strike happening. So my body is timing those movements. So I'm trying to throw the baseball right now. Okay, so this is that loaded position. Notice his arm is up behind his body. His hand isn't up yet. It's not vertical. Okay, and that's not necessarily saying you can't do that, but I see his hand flat and his arm is going to get up as his hips come through. Okay, so as he's throwing the baseball, as that back leg, as those hips start to come through, that's when you see the arm get up. Okay, so a lot of players do this way too soon. Okay, so we're going back. All of these moves, getting into your leg kick, getting out of your leg kick, is trying to set yourself up for this moment right here. Right as that leg is going to come out from under you, you should look similar to this. Your throwing arm could be a little lower, your throwing arm could be a little higher, but you don't want to look much different than this. Okay, and the point that I'm looking at again is when that front knee starts coming out from under you, crosses that front hip. You want to look as close to this as possible. Once we go into foot strike, boom, our hips have initiated our turn before our shoulders. So I ended our session today with talking about hip and shoulder separation. This is what that looks like. His left hip is turned before his left shoulder. 80% of velocity can be attributed to your ability to do this. Okay, so 80% is very significant. That is a large portion of what we're trying to accomplish. So all of our moves come down to our ability to get to this position. Okay, everything after this I'm really not worried about. I want these things to happen after foot strike just like any other coach does, but I don't talk about them because I talk about them as being reactions. Okay, so getting on top of the baseball, following through, getting out in front, staying behind the baseball. Anything that you can think about where you've heard coaches talk about how releasing the baseball, even release point, you don't hear me talking about those things because I'm much more worried about the actions early in the motion because those affect the reactions going into foot strike and afterward. Okay, so this is my last comment. If you're a younger player, your son, daughter, younger player, it's not probably as important for you to understand or for them to understand the movements to the degree that I'm talking about. Okay, so all of this has to be preceded by the idea that I want to move fast and throw the ball hard. The intention to throw aggressively, the intention to throw hard needs to happen before we start focusing on this. Younger players need to simply throw the baseball, and they simply need to try to throw the baseball hard. The more often that they can practice that, the better off they are going to be. So if you have any questions, please ask me. But hopefully this gives you a good idea of what you should be looking for in your video.